Processes and tools dominate today's Agile discussions, but we are devoted to the individuals and interactions that make it work. From the beginner to the veteran practitioner, we have something for you. Welcome to Agile for Humans.
I think there's definitely sort of what I enjoy is the talk around ideas and the talk about design and abstract layer above where you go, is it good that we work in this way? Like that's part of the Agile that I really enjoy is the meta aspect of it. Like I'm preparing a blog right now, which is talking about simplicity and continuous improvement and this kind of drive we have for, like, I think those are the cornerstones of what we're really doing. Like if you have to explain Agile to your mom, what do you say, right? And I think I can sum it right down into the concept. And you're trying to do two things. You're trying to continuously improve, right? And I think people have parallels with things like retrospectives. And the other thing you need to do is to focus on simplicity. Strive for simplicity. Question, how can I make this simpler? And for me, that's where like refactoring fits really well, is that you're constantly looking at it saying, how can I take the same program? Can I do this in a more readable way? Can I do it in a simpler way? This business problem that I'm solving, instead of creating a 6-month project, can I just, buy a library for my competitor even, right? Like sometimes those are very valid decisions. Microsoft, when they did, like everyone talks, sorry, not Microsoft, but Google Maps is like such an amazing tool. But people don't realize when it first came out, they weren't even using their own engine. They were using MapQuest because they needed to validate whether people would even buy this. Was this even a good idea? And I remember that you used to have these little map squares come up and you would click on the arrow to the side and it would like shift over to the next piece of the map.
Yep.
It was like you only look at one jigsaw puzzle piece at a time. And then Google brought this thing in where you would click and you would move over and gradually so you could like scroll. It was like a mind-blowing thing. Really changed the way people approach the software. And then they were, okay, we can do this. Then they went out and spent the money, got satellite images, blah, 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 and the rest is history. I want to help businesses do that, like start thinking in a better way.
So when I explain to my mom what I do, I tell her I work in small batches. I inspect what happens. I look at the outcome and I try to do better next time in very small batches. And that made sense to her. She's like, oh, so you just write little bits, check it, and then do it again. I'm like, yep. And I try to do better. And she okay, that sounds smart.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's an excellent description. I think we really get too far away from things sometimes. I was just listening to you talking with Neil about no estimates.
Right.
No estimates came up on the irony of spending so much time talking about no estimates, when in fact it's like we're trying to reduce, waste in our process. We're trying to do less if we can. See, I love no estimates on the principle of for me, it's striving towards simplicity. And you might have to use estimates in what you're doing, but I want you to ask the question. Like everything should be on the table as, can we rip this out? Like if I was making a bare bones car, can I take the back seats out? Well, yeah, there's only going to be 2 of us. All right, good. We don't need a back seat. Can I take the engine out? No, we're going to need the engine.
So you're listening to Agile for Humans. We went ahead and just jumped in the conversation. Bryan Beecham is with us. Bryan, thanks for being here. We're talking about simplicity. I don't want to interrupt the flow, but just want to make sure the listeners realize they're listening to the Agile for Humans podcast. And as you think about, that simplicity thing, and even no estimates, everything on the table, challenge everything. The estimate thing is interesting, and I don't want this to turn into a no estimate show if it doesn't have to, but it's interesting because the estimate acts as a proxy, in my opinion, to collaboration. And that's the part I want to challenge and really look at. Is like, is it simpler to just sit the product owner or the stakeholder or the person paying the bills next to or into the development team, having them look at the output regularly and then making decisions? And if you're doing that, what value is that estimate? That's the kind of stuff that I'm interested in.
I love the expression that, people put a story up on the wall, a little card up on the wall. I love the expression, placeholder for a conversation.
Yep.
That's what that card is. People say, oh, but it doesn't contain X, it doesn't contain Y. It's good. Good. I hope it doesn't, because I want you to, if you don't remember, to be able to talk to the person about it. You got to have that information in your head when you go to do the work. And maybe the solution is, well, we need the right people there. Oh, good. And then you start working towards something like mob programming or something. That's what brings that in. Collaboration is a key part of this.
But I think it's incredibly hard. And so we create these systems on top of systems on top of systems where we think it gets simpler. Absolutely. Then the complexity is to mask the hard things. And I wonder if we were just to, what if we spent a lot of time figuring out collaboration and the triggers that allow it to start, the things that set people out of alignment, how to get people back in alignment. We focus on that for a while. Do all of these other complex systems just die away?
You're getting back down to the KISS rule.
Yep.
Just keep it simple, Sully. And I'm a huge believer in that. In fact, I think that there's a lesson I believe that we've missed from Taiichi Ohno. When he used to go around and inspect, the process up on the wall, and if he could see, and the process all written out, if it was starting to curl up at the corners or the paper had started to yellow, he would rip it off the wall and tear a page out of the, not tear a page, but tear a strip off the person who's in charge of it, because he'd say, oh, you don't care about the company, you don't care about the families of the people that work here. But the idea is that it's the act of looking for improvement, the act of looking for a simpler way. By inspecting, we get so much insight into what it is we're actually making and doing. I think another key thing, we were talking about, explaining Agile to your mom, and, putting it into, I like saying mom instead of that. I hate the expression layman terms. I want to say to your mom, because it's someone you care about, that you want to make sure that they understand. It's critical that we have that feedback aspect when we're talking to them, right? The more we get feedback from our customers, and like you said, working in those small pieces, we can get feedback sooner. We can make sure we're building the right thing.
I always think back to my kids, and when I'm talking to my 6-year-old especially, and trying to either impart some knowledge or teach a lesson, if it's not immediate feedback, it's lost. If I try to come back 2 hours later to something that happened, he has no clue what the context was. His brain's off in a million different directions, and he's already looked at 20 different things. But when an event happens and you localize in very quickly, you inspect, you adapt, you make some changes, it sticks. And I always try to think back to that. How do we take, because at work it's all serious and it's supposed to be complex. That's why they pay us and all those things. But really, it can be as simple as parenting a child, or the same concepts can apply, and that's okay. It's even like the fun at work, right? Well, no, we can't do this. We can't do ideation with Legos. It's not professional, or all these different things. It's like,
I just had I had coffee with someone earlier today, and we were talking about the managers who, from a hopefully bygone era, who would measure things by lines of code, per developer.
Right.
It's like, oh, dude, you wrote 1,000 lines of code today. You're good. He did 1,500. He's great. Obviously, we used to measure, hopefully this still isn't done, but red cars paid higher insurance than other colors because most sports cars are red. If it's easy to measure, right, we're going to hang on to that. We're like, oh, this is a really easy thing to measure, so I'll measure it, because they want some status to say, I don't understand. Like, if a manager doesn't understand code, good code from bad code, right, they need some kind of measuring stick to go, I don't know if you're doing a good job or not. What I think we have to do is, like you were saying earlier, with simplicity, is to just focus them on, are you delivering your customer value? Like, the customer's like, oh, this is great. We've made extra money. We're doing really well. Like, make people awesome is like one of the things from Modern Agile, right? That Josh Karowski from IL is talking about. I'm a big supporter of that. We just focus on making people awesome. And a great link also, if you want to put one on your show, is from Kathy Sierra's. In that book, she gets right into the details of, don't worry about you being great. If you focus on making the users of your software and making your customers great, you will become great. So in all those little things you're worried about, like whether you're doing the right type of estimation, or whether you should be a pink paper or a red paper or a white paper you put on the wall, all the little crap. Can I say that word on this show?
That's fine. Yep.
So I just did. All that small stuff just falls wayside. Find the key things to focus on, right? I'm on Modern Agile, right? Talking about experiment and learning rapidly. We have to integrate our software frequently. We frequently deliver our software to them. Important things. I think it comes back down to, though, part of making people awesome is looking at the psychological safety that our teams have. One of the things that and Google did a big study on their best teams and said, what is it that's making team A rock versus team B? They're not doing as well. And the number one thing on these top performing teams was psychological safety. They could openly question things. They could criticize each other without kind of ego being offended. A more junior person could question a more senior person. And teams that were safe to express their opinions, safe to doubt the solution, they produced far better software. And they were much happier on their teams.
Yeah, it's not surprising that a collaborative and safe space that you can actually get to. It's the tough conversations that hold us up, right? It's the, this design was not right. We need to fix it. And to be able to do that without having the person who did the original design freak out and be defensive. Just the idea is on the outcome, and we're all invested in the outcome. And it's a hard thing to maintain, though. And I'm sure in your career as the more sought after coaches, you've seen a lot of situations where it's fallen out of place. When you walk into a place where that psychological safety has been lost, what do you do to simplify the situation, bring it back to a place of safety? What are things that let's say you have a team and it's not going right in that space, what are the things that you look for and try to do to get it back to some sense of safety?
I think awareness is one of the primary things that people need to be aware that psychological safety is an important thing. They need to be aware, of what the environment is. I mean, in a lot of cases, I get brought in to teach people about test-driven development, or they're like, make our developers go faster, or we got all kinds of bugs. We need you to make our database move, or they say things that don't even make sense. That's a Dilbert one for the really keen people. If you guessed Dilbert, you got that right. But the reality is once we get inside these organizations, what coaches are really doing is they're shifting culture. I mean, I don't know if you ever have GPA on your show or not.
No, we haven't yet.
I had great conversations with him about the cultural change that really needs to happen. Once we get the culture to change in these organizations and they see that they're not, it's not about, just get my job done, or that's his problem, that's her problem, or she gave me the wrong thing. As long as that kind of dialogue's going on, it's very, it's self-destructive. It's destructive to the company. It's destructive to the team. It's just all this stuff fits together. So, I mean, that's with my human refactoring, I like to focus on individual, team, organization. So I see this as a whole ecosystem that's connected together. If you can put the team into a healthy culture, you can get the whole culture of the company changing to support these ideas and better way of working. The team becomes a better place. And then the individual on that team, becomes much more happy and they become more productive. I mean, I have a HR friend, actually I haven't talked to for years, but she said her goal was to have people who she worked with smile on their way to work. If they were smiling on their way to work. I mean, I don't know, you've probably been on software projects where you were dreading getting to the office, and you've probably been on projects where you couldn't wait. That excitement of getting in. And I mean, I ask all the managers listening to this, which one do you want? You want your people dreading to be there? Or do you want people excited to be on your project? You want people asking to be transferred from other groups to your project? This is how to do it. It's like I coach hockey, and it's one thing we tell the kids. It's an easy game. You focus on fundamentals, and the score, the victories, all that takes care of itself. And you said something earlier, I just want to mention it before I forget, is that immediate feedback. They teach us in hockey coaching that when a child comes to the bench right after their shift, that's the time you give them feedback. You can't wait till after the game. It's gone. Yep. Right? They did so many different things in their mind. All sorts of stuff happened. They won or they lost. They're talking about the weekend or video games or something in the change room. Like it's gone. But what you talk about is when they first come off from that shift, right? And it's, we call it the poop sandwich in Agile coaching, right? But you tell them it's the same thing. It's, for those who aren't familiar with that, is how to write a critical email. You start off with the bread, which is a nice little, hey, so, haven't talked to you for a while or something friendly. And then the middle part is what you really want to get to is the fact that I couldn't help but notice, blah, 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 blah. I mean, in the hockey example, it might be, hey, Johnny, you're really skating hard out there today. Then you put in the point you want to get across. Next time when you have the puck in our own zone, don't bring it up in front of the net. Instead, come out more towards the boards, right? Keep up the good work. And that whole package, when you package it like that, you've reinforced that you're pleased with how they're doing, and there's a way for them to get even better, to get that continuous improvement.
If you're not handling things in the moment, you're waiting for a later time, you're losing the impact. And I think as coaches, we see that regularly. But again, you get in these environments where it may not be safe to do so, and you have to work through that. But I agree with you on awareness. The awareness is critical. Just being able to point out and say, does anyone in this room realize it's unsafe to talk about this? But we really need to do that. And it's a scary moment, but it's something that if you don't make that awareness happen, I don't think improvement's possible. All right, we're going to take a real quick break. When we come back, more with Bryan Beecham about coaching, simplicity, continuous improvement, and maybe a few more hockey tips. We'll be right back. Most coaches agree that education is vital to the success of an Agile transformation. The shared experience of having all team members take the same training puts everyone on the same page. Today's sponsor, SQE Training, one of the TechWell companies, offers both fundamental and specialized courses that help teams and organizations improve their practices and make successful transformations. Software testing training weeks feature fundamental courses in Agile, DevOps, software testing, and Agile testing that can give teams the common foundation that comes from a shared training experience. They also offer specialized courses like Agile test automation, mobile application testing, and test management, planning, and measurement. Software testing training weeks are planned for San Diego, Boston, and Chicago this spring. See all the courses, dates, and locations at https://well.tc/17AFHW. Agile for Humans listeners can save $250 on any training course when they register by March 31st with the promo code 17AFHW. Groups of 3 to 5 can save 10%, and groups of 6 or more save up to 20%. Email groups@sqetraining.com for custom group pricing. Again, get your team on the same page with training by SQE Training. Learn more at well.tc/17AFHW.
Now, Liz Coey was telling me about something she did where she had, I don't know if she has it online. Maybe she has it on SlideShare or something. But she had a presentation she put up before a retrospective, and it would have 5 statements on it. It basically 5 bullets, and it'd be, first bullet is this, second, meaning how do you feel right now? And like a 5 would be, I feel like I can say anything here at all. Whereas a 2, I think, is something like, I don't feel I can speak my mind. I'm going to go along with whatever the group says and stuff. There's the comments like that. And she said that if you're not getting 4s and 5s across the board, the people basically just have to show I don't think they write it. They think they write it on a piece of paper and they give it up to her, so it's all private. And then she sees all the numbers. And if she doesn't get all 4s and 5s, they don't even have the retrospective.
Wow.
Right? Don't even have it. Because if people aren't willing to, don't feel safe to talk and to make that change, it can be even more destructive, right? To do it. Like it can be, there's people that are just nodding. They're like, this meeting's a waste of time. And they don't appreciate, the whole concept of improvement. Or we have a situation, right? Maybe John's a jerk and Jill can't say anything about his code without him going off the handle because he thinks he writes perfect code. These situations, reality is, when we say, there's a manager job, well, the manager job's got nothing to do with technology in any way. No matter what role you're doing, managing is always about managing people. And I think that's something that needs to evolve now. We need to go how to work with people, right? You see things like managing from the back of the room, and we're really starting to question these approaches. And I know we touched on no estimates. I think that fits into that, right? Managers are the ones really getting squashed between being at the point of a hierarchical structure, which used to make a whole lot of sense and give them all kinds of power, to suddenly having a dev team. Like a lot of pilot projects are just this development team, which is working in this collaborative way. And, they're the ones stuck in the middle of it. They're being challenged on, what do you mean your team's like, or for example, maybe they say, I see people talking about, or they're questioning why we're using a certain library and they want to write their own, right? That they're wasting our time. They should just pump out more features or something, right?
Or
like
even
they kind of get separated from team intent.
Or even simpler, why I saw one of your teammates reading a book. What's that about?
Yeah, what's that about? You're reading. Well, and they've been trained. And I gotta have some sympathy here. Project managers or business analysts, we spent 20 years, 30 years telling them to work a certain way. And now we're saying, oh, yeah, don't work that way now. We want you to work differently. And we're not giving you any help. We're not giving you any support. We're just, hey, they're lucky if they can go to a conference. How many times have you been at one of the, the big Agile conference now is, they got I don't know if you've been to the Agile Tech one. Did you go there? Were you there last year?
I was not. I was
fantastic.
I was at Agile 2016, but only because I was able to speak.
So it's expensive conference now, right? But the managers that are there, they're getting their minds are blown because they're a whole new way to work. They're like, we didn't know it could be like this, or
I put a lot of thought into, and actually I used to do a talk about empathy for management because it's quite a challenge to actually go from such a command and control hierarchical mindset to Agile, and part of it, so I went through this experience. So I spent the first 10, 12 years of my career as a developer, and then project manager, and then first line manager, and it was all that style in a traditional company. And it once you see the Agile way, there's a lot of remorse and regret, and you start thinking about situations where you kept people late at night. You thought sliding pizza under the door was a fair compromise for taking away family time. You remember some of these things and you start working through it, and it's a hard thing to confront. That some of the things you did were inhumane, some of the practices, while at the time you thought was best for the company, really was not really a great thing to do. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, and there's some pushback. And then you have, even within the Agile community, oh, you're a project manager, you're worthless to Agile. Or those types of really extreme views of, managers aren't needed. And then, so not only do they have the internal conflict going on, externally, there's some very extreme views. And I certainly have a ton of empathy for those people trying to shake those thoughts from the past and also deal with, some of the confrontation that comes with making the switch.
We've gotten far too critical. For people talk about being such an empathetic movement and a collaborative movement, and I hear people having holy wars over estimates, over certifications, it's like people are so quick to criticize other people's way of doing it. It's like you can offer an alternative. You can always do that, and it's people's choice on where they spend their dollars. I think groups evolve. If you can either, I'm always reminded of this story when I think it was I think it was Bob Geldof. No, Bob Geldof. I'm trying to think of a singer. Maybe it was when Joe Strummer passed away, and it was Joe Strummer, and the singer said this great comment. He said, I don't think Joe or either of us like the pop industry, but he tried to change it from the outside. I tried to change it from the outside. Well, he tried to change it from the inside. And it's a really interesting idea, though, is that there's so many people now in the Agile, can I call it a movement, right? The Agile group, like if you go, these people at conferences, there's all this criticism. There's always like, oh, this is a bad idea. This is terrible. Oh, I do X and you do Y, so you're a horrible person. And I don't know where all the hate comes from. I want to get back to like treating people well. Like, let's make people awesome. I mean, that's why that rings for me, is that's rewarding. Well, I my customers well. I don't want to like rip people off to like I can profit more for the next month and then go to the next customer, or treat developers like grind them into the ground, and then they'll quit and I'll hire some more and grind them into the ground. And it's I don't know. Maybe I know people do this. I know people go, oh, that's smart because it's profitable. But like, that's something I want no part of. I got really excited with the Agile movement because of the caring that was in it, right? Because of this, maybe I'm being idealistic, but this view that we can make the world a better place. We're going to make the world of software development better. If you look at all the open source stuff, right, on the web, and the internet has been built off of free work, off of people doing stuff and not getting paid for it. Hoping, and people say, oh, well, they're getting recognition. They don't get it. A lot of times they're doing it because they love it. They're pushing something out in GitHub because they're proud of it. They're excited. I know graphic designers, they're like, you want to see frustration? Put a graphic designer by themselves, right? Yep. They go nuts. What they need to do is go, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think of this, right? People are proud of their work. They need to show it off.
It's funny that we have this kind of conflict when our first value from the manifesto is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And yet these people are willing to fight to the death over SAFe or whatever other framework or methodology. And I'm with you. I really want to stay on the left side of that equation, not discount the fact that processes and tools still exist and they're insufficient but necessary, right?
Woody Zuhl calls them the leftovers.
The leftovers, right?
This is the left over the right.
Right, the leftovers. But I want to stay on the left side of that equation where it's the individuals and interactions. And that's why, we started this podcast. It started as a group of us. I mean, we used to just get on Skype and talk. And I think it was Don Gray who said, if we recorded this might be interesting. And I'm like, done. Let's start recording. And suddenly we have 52, 53 episodes out there and, 10,000 downloads.
And they're excellent. They're really good. I mean, I have to go through more of them. But whenever I listen to them, they're contagious, and it's like listening to some people. Like, I love the idea of just the chatting, and this happens at work all the time. You start talking about a concept and
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. It's neat that you talked about the simplicity. Someone once asked me, hey, I want to do a podcast too, and what did you do that? Because the downloads are exploding. I mean, we're 52 episodes in, and the monthly downloads just keep going up and up and up. And I tell people I have two principles. I love my friends, and I want them to be as wildly successful as possible. And that's those are the two principles that guide this show. And there's one rule that I have when I'm editing, is that I minimize my part as much as possible. So although we'll have this conversation, when it goes out, half of the things I said will be gone, and you will be the focus of this show. And I think that those two principles of love your friends and help them become as wildly successful as possible, and then minimizing yourself, that simplicity, I think it just makes it such a clear message and people just get behind it. And I think if we brought that back to even the ways we do our teams, how can I love my teammates and make them as wildly successful as possible, but minimize my credit or my prestige? And I think
that's selflessness, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's almost like some ethics that have been lost. Like I know the word engineer gets thrown around all the time for different stuff, but exists because a bridge collapsed, and we realized people need to be ethical about when they're designing things and when they're making things, and we've lost some of this ethics in society. I mean, this is much broader than the work that we do. I mean, I see this at the time. You hear stories and the coaches, yelling at kids and stuff like that. And we get, the system is better now. Like people are getting chucked out of organizations, and there's a lot better training and stuff and filtering out. But people aren't growing up with kind of manners and appreciation for other people. So they come into the workplace going, I'm going to maximize this for myself. And I don't know, did you see the movie A Beautiful Mind?
I did.
So it's in it, they talk about, John Nash and was it equilibrium theory? But I mean, he points out about how the best thing you can do is to actually help everyone. If everyone works together, if you maximize your profit only on the basis of trade equilibrium, if you maximize the gain for you personally, if everyone strives for the best situation possible for them at the down of others, they will not work over the long term. The idea is that, an example, they had like 4 farmers, right? And if one of them has like a bad crop, then the other farmers can help them out, because there's going to be another year where you have a bad crop, right? But we've gone the other way. We've gone to the society of get as much as I can for myself, right? Profit as much as I can. There's something wrong with it internally. There's an instinctive human nature that we feel wrong when we do this, because it's very natural. It's been millions of years where we need community. We need a sense of belonging. We need a sense that I am part of something. It's not just me. I belong to this family. I belong to a community. I belong to a village. I belong to and this is why people join CrossFit. This is why people join hockey teams. This is why people, get a gym membership even. This is why people go to Agile conferences. They have a need, this sense of belonging and being part of something. But I don't know how along that way and when you're there, treat them well, or that's fallen away.
Absolutely.
Because we go to these things and then we cross-check the kid and the other kid into the boards, right?
When we're at conferences, and I think our paths cross a few times here and there, I think the most fun we've had, and I always think back to, this. It used to be you tell the story around the campfire, right? And it used to be that's how you passed knowledge and you taught, and the lessons came from it. And that it certainly evolved into, books and other learnings and teachers and life coaches and whatever the new thing is. But at the root of it, it's just being able to sit around and tell a story to each other. And that's what we do at even these conferences. We find a place, we grab a few drinks, and everyone talks. And it's one of the most enjoyable experiences of the year. I think that's why a lot of us go. It's that there's a group of people that we want to sit down and have that campfire talk with, because there's something in us that we need to have that. And I think bringing that to your teams, can your teams just sit around and tell a story to each other about what you're building and what your aspirations are and what you want to do even outside of the work, and just get that kind of connectedness. And I've seen teams get there, and they are far more productive. And these aren't, I don't believe in the 10X developer. I don't believe that person really exists, but I believe in strongly aligned people doing great things together.
My belief is that we have a few different team models that can work. The one I call the surgical team, and that's where we have 2 doctors and we have supporting staff, and they are not all equal. You have let's say we got a hypothetical, we have like a a C-sharp shop. We got a couple of guys who are like been coding for years. They're totally into it. They're into the blogs. It's their life. They live and breathe it, right? You don't need to put, and it's actually hazardous to put like 5 or 6 of those guys together on a team. What you want is like a couple of those guys, and then you want like 3 kind of keen learners, up and coming guys who learn quickly and they're eager, right? You got some desire for it. You need people, other support people around it. Like you need someone in with the business who really understands it, and who can say, no, that's incorrect. This is what the customer really wants. And that can't be at a 2-week interval or something. That has to be immediately, like right away, all the time, whenever an idea gets talked about. So that's kind of like the surgical team. You have the other teams which are kind of more even skilled, but they're kind of lower skill level and they can work more collaboratively, right? Like they can, with those groups, you can do a lot of like conspicuous pairing and stuff. A lot of pair programming that is strong. So I've become very, I've moved away from trying to say this is the way you should do it. I used to be totally that way. You must do it this way. You must be like this. And I spoke with George Didwitty and Bob Marshall in Potsdam, Germany at Agile Testing Days. But they talked to me about my approach and stuff. I started describing them what I was doing. They both got wide-eyed, and they helped level me up there as a coach, I think.
I've had the George Dinwiddie level up experience, and it is profound.
It really is, and he can do it with so few words too. It's amazing. But they really got me to focus on what are the goals of the team. Like, what does the team want to get out of it? Not what do I want to get out of it. Or like sometimes as a coach, you see the potential.
Yep.
You say, wow. This happens in hockey all the time, right? That could be here or whatever, right? I used to teach guitar lessons. It was the same thing. It's like, oh, this kid could play like this. If I just got to fill in these missing pieces. But you have to understand what's people's motivation. Going back to what you were saying beforehand, how does the team want to make that change? And if they don't have the awareness that it's important, right, they won't. So they have to want it. Why do people want to go to the gym or go jogging or self-improve or weigh less? Or like I've talked to, with the human refactoring thing, I talked to all kinds of people about, people approach me and they're like, oh, I really need help with this. I need to refactor myself. And it's probably 1 in 20 conversations that amount to anything. Because to start off, I say, hey, this is going to be hard. You're going to have to change ingrained habits that you have. You're going to have to do some things you don't like. And you're going to have to, you're going to have to change. And you're going to have to fuel it yourself. And they're like, well, there's no magic wand and stuff, right?
Where's the quick fix? Come on, where's the quick fix,
Where's
Brian?
the quick fix?
Let's go. Come on. 6 months, get the team fixed.
Isn't there?
Come on.
Isn't there a blog with like 6 things I can do to make myself awesome?
Sure.
No?
How about a pill? You got a pill?
How about a pill? Yeah. That's what it is, though. People really want it. They go, oh, well, let's paint Agile on the walls, and suddenly everything will solve itself, right? We'll have all these problems will go away. But I think they need to drill down into the, if there are 6 things to say, right? I like modern Agile, and I like to do a cross-section with 2 things with it. So modern Agile, going to make people awesome, deliver value continuously, make safety prerequisite, and forgetting the last one. Oh, experiment and learn rapidly. Those 4 things are fantastic, right? And they talk about so much we're doing with Agile. But through that, though, I want to tell people to focus on simplicity and continuous improvement, right? Keep all those things in mind. But with those 6 things, that's all you need. Every question you have, you say, well, is this making people awesome? No, this is actually treating people like garbage. Well, you probably shouldn't do it then, right? Like, it's a guideline, and it's not like, we really threw around a lot of stuff at first about, at IL, about going into, like, where do things fit into that? Like, how does TD fit in? How does refactoring fit in? Trying to map everything down for people. And the real conclusion was, we want people to think, right? We want people to think for themselves. We want people to go question stuff. I mean, that's where you really make a jump. I'm talking about the Agile mindset. What does the Agile mindset do, right? We go, I wonder if there's a better way, or wow, I got it wrong. I'm going to try harder, right?
Yeah, I think it was Woody Zuhl. I always come, for some reason, when we start talking about these things, Woody Zuhl stories pop in my mind. I think it's just because he's so profoundly on the side of the human element of things. And, we were talking about putting rules and guidelines in place, and he stopped me, and I think he said something about, rules show up because people do the wrong things. Don't you want things in place that tell people how to do the right things? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And we went through this conversation, and of course he was right. And when I think of modern Agile, it's not rules to guard against a bad practice. It's basically just showing how to turn up the good, as Woody would say. And I think that's what he
would say. I said, you mean turn down the bad? And Woody said, no, don't turn down the bad. Just turn up the good. And again, it's one of those things. Woody will say a few words, and it takes you months to figure out what he really meant there, Because I think I got it on the surface, but then, a few weeks later, I'll be like, oh, wait a sec. I just saw another level to what he said. It was like I had I don't know if you got this at the beginning of I don't know when you started recording at the beginning when we were chatting, but I said I had a boss that said you got time to lean, you got time to clean.
Okay.
I thought he was really in about measuring the busyness, but in fact, I'm looking at that now going, cleaning up a room or a system or your health, right? Cleaning up your body, right? Maybe you quit smoking. It's such a profound change that if you have any, if you can afford extra time, invest it in making that improvement and that, a simpler, improved system. But it's interesting how some words that we hear, some sayings, they change their meaning over time.
Oh, certainly.
It's like we're not in the right state. We're not I hear a phrase and I'm like, oh yeah, it means X. But then I'm like, I don't know, I think I learn a few different things and then my perspective's different. And I'm like, oh, wow, I hadn't considered that.
I think that's a good sign. Like if you're having those moments where you think back to something and it used to mean one thing to you and now it means another, it's kind of a sign of growth, right?
I hope so. Maybe.
Or maybe regression. Maybe regression. I don't know.
Maybe regression. It's change anyway, but
it is change.
I always feel like, oh, wow, I was being pretty slow beforehand. Like, what was I thinking? A lot of times it's maturity too, right? Like we go from a state, it might be some survival in it, but when we're 21 years old, we think that we know everything. And there's probably it's scientifically probably quite important for our survival to feel that way. That way we get kicked out of the house and we have to go and do things on our own. And it's a healthy process. But over time, I heard this the other day. I laughed. I said, my friend said, he said, the older I get, the smarter my dad is.
That's very true.
And it's like, yeah, things we don't realize. We're like, well, why would you ever want to do that? And suddenly it's like, oh, wow, that's a great idea.
Well, then you throw kids into the mix, and then you find yourself saying the same things that your parents did that you hated. We don't play with toys and after school until the homework's done because we get our work done, and then we can play. And it's like, well, that was always, this is the worst. And then you have a kid, and it's like, well, if it gets to 9 o'clock, he's already past his bedtime. And if the homework's not done, he's going to be up later. So yes, we want to front load the homework, play a little bit, make sure they're in bed, because if they don't get, 10 hours of sleep, they're crazy. And all these things go through your mind that you had no awareness of as a kid. And it's like, oh, it all made sense. And those moments.
It all makes sense.
And it happens a lot.
So how do you deliver that now? Like we come back to it and like knowing how you felt beforehand, knowing how you felt as a child, and now knowing how you feel as an adult, when you deliver that and you realize it's your dad's words coming out of your mouth,
right?
You go, do you change what you say?
I do. And I have preempt this with, I have great parents. So I had a very good upbringing, nothing tragic, never wanted for anything, every opportunity.
Now, are you saying that because they listen to the show?
No, they don't listen, but I'm just saying I have no reason to ever complain about my childhood. And so they did the best they could and with all the ways they knew. But with that said, so when I do, when my son does get upset, there's a little empathy there where, all right, I understand why you're upset about this. And I just try to explain, we have to get to bed at this time. We have to, and just lay it out and then offer him choices, which I find is actually helpful. So I try to put trade-offs in place. Like if we don't do our homework now, this may happen, or try to put scenarios in place where he has to think through a choice and accept a consequence of that choice. And I find that...
I think it's a great way. I've done the same thing. I've introduced the concept of a choice and put the onus on. It's like, well, this is what's happening. This is how much time you actually have.
Right.
This is what we're planning on doing later. This is why you should do your homework now. But at the same time, sometimes there's other little methods. Like I brought in Pomodoros when my eldest was younger. Yep. I had a lot of trouble getting him going on the homework. So we actually did 5-minute Pomodoros.
Nice. And
that was it was 4 minutes of working. And then had a little timer. And then the timer would go off and set it for a minute. And it's okay, a minute. And it's the whole concept of you have to stop working now. Stop working on your homework. And it was very successful. I know it's not really a Pomodoro. It's really short. But it was enough that, focusing for 4 minutes on something isn't too bad. Right? You can keep your focus on that. And knowing that it's this thing about knowing you have this break.
Yep.
It's always like a grueling concept to go, oh, I'm going to have to do X. And you go, and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like it's, when will I come up from air? It's like going under a bridge or the tunnel full of water. You're like, I don't know if I'll make it to the other side.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I find too that trying to make it fun. And so the other great thing that my parents did was they always paired with us on homework. So we weren't just sent off to a room to do homework. It was, well, here, let's talk through these problems. And now they didn't give us the answers, but there was always a sounding board and a way to kind of seek guidance. And I find that pairing and trying to keep it fun, and that has also helped. But most importantly, and I think I have this issue at times too, is just getting started. If you can just get started if you can break the inertia, it seems to help as well.
And you have to make it easy to be successful.
Yep.
Like it's simple to succeed. So you have a place that's clean, that's ready, and it's routine. You always do your homework at that time in that place. And, we need to do this with our teams too. Make it easy to succeed. Don't make it hard to be successful. Now, that's one thing. I mean, I'm not one thing I really like about the concept of Scrum Masters in new organizations that are new to Agile. I think the Scrum Master brings in, we start off with one person with this approach of, hey, I want to remove barriers out of the way for you guys. I want to block problems that are coming in and make it easier and easier for you to do your work. Good Scrum Masters can be fantastic in making that, bridging that, what I was talking about earlier about that, Agile team with old structure, working with a manager in that. I think that the longer term, though, I'd like to see everyone kind of be able to do that. I think the reality is that in a lot of organizations, you can't get everyone to do that. You can't give them the authority like that. I know you can't give it to them. It's just that that's so weird for an organization. Like one of the things I talk to people about is, if I said, hey, I go to the gym 7 days a week, you'd be like, dude, something wrong with you, right? But if you were a person that went to the gym twice a week, and I said I went to the gym 3 times a week, you'd be like, yeah, I could see that. I could probably try to get another workout in. It would be good for me or whatever, right? And if I said 4, you'd be like, okay, stretching it a little bit, that's a lot. But if you were a guy who went 4 days a week to the gym, and I said I was going 6 days, you'd be like, wow. It's the difference between where we are now and what we're talking about, right? And I think that's confusing for a lot of organizations and teams because we come in and we talk about, okay, we're doing this like a Kanban thing, and it's going to be like really free flowing, and it's going to be like, and they're like, what? And starting, I think Scrum has been so successful because it's starting them in a easier spot. It's easier for them to get their heads around. Good or bad.
It's prescriptive, and so it tells you that at the beginning of a sprint you'll do this, and these are the outputs, and you're ultimately trying to get a sprint goal or an outcome. And I think it is. Scrum is a brilliant on-ramp to Agile, but it gets back to your comment about we want people to think. And so eventually Scrum could become insufficient, where you have situations come up and maybe you have to switch over to Kanban or to some other method or some hybrid in between that is fit for your purpose, but you got there because you experimented, you asked questions, and you found a way to enhance the flow of the work.
Yes. Did you get there the right way? Did a manager come and say, you're going to change to Kanban today?
Right.
Or did you, as a team, go, wow, you know what? We're having trouble here. Like we get this, we get this part done. Can't we put it live now? And then the manager, a supportive manager, then goes, well, what you're talking about is a concept called Kanban, where we just, move things through right away. It's a little different than Scrum, and maybe prepares a presentation to show people the differences. And the team's like, okay, too weird. Maybe in another few months, but we better stick to Scrum. Or they're like, hey, that's great. That would be perfect for us. I think that's the old manager versus the new manager, right? And their approach and support.
Yeah, and it's
a cultural thing, though, right? It's like saying, I'm going to offer you choice. It's just like you said you do with your son.
Right.
The manager does with the team. Well, here's Scrum and here's Kanban. What do you guys feel about? We'd like to try this one.
Here's the pros, cons, consequences. Yeah, exactly. And
they're allowed to. They have that safety that they can go and try it, knowing you might get it wrong, knowing you might screw things up, knowing you might delay the project.
That safety thing is super critical, and it reminds me of a workshop that I was doing. It's basically an advanced Scrum workshop where people can show up with all of their questions, and we throw them on the board, and the idea is you got through the 2-day class, you went back to your organization, and you're hitting a wall. There's organizational resistance, there's team resistance. So what do you do next? And they come with these scenarios. And I remember a gentleman very clearly, he's like, our retros are worthless. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Why are they worthless? Well, no one will talk. Well, do you understand why no one's talking? He's like, well, I have no idea. And he was getting more and more agitated with the more questions I asked. And I started thinking to myself, wow, I think I understand what's happening. And so I asked the guy, have you ever left the room and let the team retro with one of their team members leading it? Well, why would I do that? And just more and more agitated. And so I asked him, as an experiment with your next retro, would you be willing to leave the room and allow the team to see if they can come up with some suggestions and outcomes? And actually, he did email me afterwards, and we actually had a nice conversation, but he did leave the room, and what he learned was they didn't feel safe talking in front of him. And it was this agitation. It wasn't the fact that he wouldn't empower or help them, but they would had to deal with the outward agitation of some of the questions. And that awareness, I think, helped him greatly.
By him leaving the room, too, he actually is building trust with them.
Yep.
He's saying, I'm going to let you run some of this yourself now. And that's going to help improve that relationship there. He's not exiting, his involvement. He's actually strengthening his relationship.
And just so the listeners don't think I'm being too critical, I actually had to leave the room in a past role. I was an IT director, and I had a team reporting to me, and we were struggling with a solution. And I got the sense, we brought the team into a conference room with some whiteboards, and it's like, all right, guys, what are we going to do? And I got the sense that there was an issue speaking in front of me. And it was kind of humbling that they wanted to, or that they weren't able to do some of the solutioning with me in the room. And so I got up and I said, I'm going to leave. I think you're all brilliant. I think you're all capable of solving this problem without me. As soon as you're ready with a solution in mind, I'd like to see it. So if you would show it to me when you're ready, just ping me and hit me up on Slack and I'll come back. And after being ground to a halt for hours, I think within 30 minutes, I had a ping on Slack with, hey, come in, we got something. And when we retroed on it, I found out later it was a bad design decision. They didn't want to humiliate someone so quickly in close proximity to reviews coming up. And it was, which was actually...
So it's actually caring based, right?
Yes.
Like they were...
Absolutely. And I actually,
Interesting.
During the retro, I told them I was proud of them for that action, but also reassured them that in no way would that come up on a review, that happens. Design is emergent. Architecture is emergent. We're going to learn things and move on. But it's kind of a humbling experience too, where you have to walk out the door and trust the team. And that stuff's hard. It's why I think a lot of this stuff can fail in organizations, why some of this stuff is scary in organizations, and why empathy and safety are just so super critical to this. Because even coaches like us can be in situations where, sometimes they want us out of the room too.
I have had absolutely brilliant guitar teachers that I said, yeah, I can't work with this guy. and I've had other guitar teachers who their prowess wasn't anywhere near this person, but right away we were on the same wavelength and we connected, and everything he said, it just made sense to me. That's so important that you have the right fit, the right type of coach for that team. And it's a big thing.
So Bryan, we're hitting our time box, and being the good Agilists we are, we respect our time boxes. But before we get out, the last time we talked, you were working on the living to 100, or was it 200 experiment? 200. So far you've been successful as you're here and talking, right?
Still going.
So what's the progress on the live to 200 goal?
That one's taken a back seat, and I went on a different project recently. And which I just posted a blog up about it. So, and it's a superhero experiment.
Nice.
Because with the human refactoring, a lot of people talk about, I need to trim up, or I need to, run a little faster. I need to do this. And for me, I started thinking, I said, well, what would be really challenging is to actually to bulk up, to see if I can, build a superhero physique. And so I have, for the last 6 months, 7 months, I've been going to the gym 3 times a week and increased my diet dramatically. Actually putting on weight, and everyone's like, I need to take the weight off. What do you mean? Putting it on's easy. But it's like putting on the right kind of weight. So measuring, the percentage body fat. Yeah, it's all about healthy living too. I mean, I'm continually trying to improve things. So I've actually just finished this. My weight went from up to 230, from like 210. And for 20 pounds, it wasn't all muscle. I mean, you do put on it's a whole little game of fat and muscle and being bigger and size. So now what I'm trying to do is to trim back down and keep as much muscle as I can. It's, people can read it more on the blog at humanrefactor.com. They'd like to learn more about that. I still like the, this is part of the living to 200. It's part of the human refactor stuff. I think we're really on the verge of a lot of scientific breakthroughs that are going to change the way humans are. I'm hoping it doesn't become a real separate kind of thing where the people with money get to have the health pill or whatever, right? And people who don't get it. We'll see. I mean, obviously something with people living to 200 would change the world. So I just focus right now on, that's my brilliant redesign in my head, is that I can be so healthy that I can live long. But as we know, good refactors, that we focus on, simplicity, continuous improvement, and just do a little bit. So today I eat very well. Well, actually, today's experiment is with intermittent fasting. So that's another great, I should do a blog on it, but it's another great thing that people do. The idea being that when you drop this weight, that you can actually sustain more muscle mass on your body if you, every second day, you do fasting.
Nice. So if you want to keep up with Bryan and his experiments in refactoring the human body, we'll get a link up to the to his blog site. So in the show notes, you can check it out. It's always fascinating to catch Bryan at Agile Coach Camp or one of these other conferences where he's presenting on how he's refactoring his lifestyle, and it always catches the attention. I hope you make it to 200, and I hope I'm still here to interview you and see how 200's going. So how about that?
Sounds great.
So Bryan, at this point, if you want to promote anything, if you have anything going on, if you're hitting some conferences, I'm sure I know the listeners love catching you, being able to talk to you. So where are you going to be? What do you have going on? And how can the listeners reach out to you?
Well, things have just opened up. I'm trying to do some more work I've been very focused at a few clients, and I'm trying to go back to more of what I used to do, which is working on with several different clients. I'd love to come to England, actually. Llewellyn Falco and I were talking. We said that's it's mostly closer to him, but we would like to meet up and do some training together. Got to do some more shout-outs to see if we can get some interest in London, England, and run a workshop there. I'm actually, if people who are looking for a speaker, I invite them to reach out and talk to me, because I'm planning my year out. I've had there's a few dates, but I'm not finalized yet, so I don't want to push them out there, but mostly overseas.
Well, then if that's what you got, Bryan, we'll keep an eye out for you. Hopefully you'll be at Coach Camp or Agile 2017, or we'll catch you at one of these. Otherwise, you're going to be up in Canada, huh?
Other than that, I'm up in Canada, and I'm doing less traveling right now than I was, and spending lots of time with my family, and I'm loving that. So it's great quality of life right now.
Excellent. Well, that's great to hear, Bryan. And as always, thank you for joining me. Love the time that we get together. It's not often enough, but take what we can get. It's always great to be able to talk with you, and can't wait for the next time.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for listening to Agile for Humans. Let's keep the conversation going. Drop us a question on Twitter @AgileForHumans or visit agileforhumans.com.